Today we're doing an oral history from the River Edge Historic Commission, and we're interviewing Barbara Christiansen, a longtime resident. It is February 26, 2017, and we look forward to interviewing Barbara. And if it's okay, Barbara, can we say your age?
Yeah. Yes, I'm 97.
Okay, great.
I turned 97 in October 24th.
Wonderful. And before we get into, as I say, Barbara Christiansen is a longtime River Edge resident. Before we get into that, I want to ask about your service during World War II when you were in the Marine Reserves. Can you fill us in a little bit about that?
Well, the Marine Corps, the women in the Marine Corps were called reservists because the Marine Corps, the macho Marine Corps, couldn't imagine that it would want and need women in the Corps after the war. And they expected to disband us after the war. And we did such a good job. At that time, we merely took over the stateside jobs of the Marine men so they could be released for combat in the Pacific.
What type of jobs did you do? What did the Marine Corps Reserve women do? What type of jobs?
Well, the smartest ones did the link training. The link was the artificial method of training the pilots to operate their planes, both transport planes and the fighter planes, which they had more of than. And I worked for A&R, Assembly and Repair, and we repaired at Cherry Point, North Carolina, the Marine Corps Air Base, and we got all the supplies from the Navy. The Marine Corps was a branch of the Navy, after all, and we jokingly said the Navy was a branch of the Marine Corps. The Corps was very important. The expertise of the Corps was most important, and the loyalty to the Corps was most important. And once a Marine, always a Marine. And I still stand up when I hear the Marine Corps hymn, and I stand up. And, that gets me back to the reason what I was going to begin with, and was the dedication of the WIMSA, the Women...
what does that stand for, WIMSA?
Women in the Military for America. And that turns out to be WIMSA.
And that was, you said, your visit to Washington, D.C.?
D.C. It's in Arlington Park, the cemetery portion of it, which was owned by the Lee family originally.
Robert E. Lee, yes.
Yes,
correct.
and they finally settled it after Lee had died. He couldn't stand being a second-class citizen, and he died 5 years. And just about the time that they were reinstated as part of the United States and citizenry in the United States of America. And, I digress so much, and I forget what it was I was originally telling you about. uh, that was, I digressed because that was Lee's property, and after he died, they settled for $100,000, which was a lot at that time, and
Yes, well,
the government.
Robert E. Lee's property was confiscated after the Civil War because the South lost and they made his property a cemetery. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Yes.
You're very good on your history, Barbara. But
you are too.
But I'd like to now go on to talking about moving to River Edge now. How about, talking about that? Because
I
that's
wanted to tell
Oh,
about
sorry, go ahead.
The luncheon they had just for women Marines.
Okay.
And they had the Marine Corps band, the Washington, D.C. band, and they had 5 members of the female sex members of the band, which was good to see. And they had generals. Now, during World War II, the commandant of the WRs that we were known as, that's the best name they could come up with, women reserves. And they I lose my thought.
It's okay, Barbara. We can,
I am 97.
That's fine. But as I say, remember, we're doing this as far as River Edge people.
They had generals in the Marine Corps, and the uniform was changed. They had more of the copy of the men in the Marine Corps.
Sure.
Copied their uniforms better. And Lily Daché designed the hats, and she was a well-known French designer
at that particular time.
During the war, and had an office here, a milliner's office here, and she designed the and Coco Chanel.
Coco Chanel, yes.
Yeah, designed the uniforms.
Wow.
So we had.
You were very fashionable.
Yes, we were, and we felt so fashionable.
Okay,
once
well, Barbara,
we had the.
Let's get into a little bit about River Edge, because remember this is everyone is going to be interested in how your role in River Edge and when you first came, and remember there's so many people in town that don't know what River Edge was like when you first moved to town.
That's right.
Do you want to tell us a little about when did you and Carl first move to town?
1951. So I've been living in not this house. Originally bought one of the new ranch houses.
Oh, so this is your second home in River Edge?
Yes.
Where was the first home again?
And Oak Avenue, and the south part of the town. That had, as the descendant of the Zabriskie that settled in here, and had the farm, he said they were boxes, like little boxes, like the ranch houses out west of the countries, the temporary houses.
So are you referring to J. Pell Zabriskie?
Yeah.
Yes.
And he knew his grandson, I think it was.
Okay.
Grandson.
Who
of course, my husband
originally
would
became
be
mayor during
well over
during the
100
Depression.
years old.
Oh, right.
And he said, asked my husband, who was later the mayor of River Edge.
Yes, we'll get into that. Sure.
Yes. Where did did you live in, buy a home in River Edge? And he said, one of the boxes you just described.
You didn't think much of them.
No.
Now, what was it like in River Edge when you moved to town as far as groceries? Was there a grocery store in town when you moved here?
Yes, there was.
Remember the name? Honeydew.
Honeydew.
Yeah, I'd heard.
Was the
Where was that
grocery
exactly?
store. Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that was exactly? The Honeydew store?
It's where the Oriental, the Asian store.
Where the ShopRite was. It's the Asian market now. That was a ShopRite, and before that it was
Food Town.
Now Honeydew.
Now,
It was Honeydew when you moved to town.
Yes, it was Honeydew.
What other things? What other stores were in town during that time that you could shop
well,
at?
the little split mall on the other side, opposite the
Like where Happy
the
Carrot is
post.
now? Over
Yes.
there? Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was there. But the post office was not.
Oh.
The post office in southern
Southern end
part
of town.
of town on Kinderkamack was the only post office that was on.
So where Newbridge is now, that was the only post
uh,
office? There wasn't one
No,
up in the other end?
there was one in what became a store, a private store. And that was when we first moved down there. And that was in the little shopping mall where adjacent to
The train station.
Honeydew. No, that was the station up there. And then they built the new post office on the other side of Kinderkamack.
Oh.
But that was after we moved in. That was several years after we moved in. And do I frown too much?
No, that's okay. And then when you moved to town, did you join some clubs? Did you join the local church?
I joined the church first because Ernest Yarrow was the first one. He beat the welcome wagon. At that time, we had a welcome wagon that we don't have anymore. And he beat the welcome wagon, and I had just told, I had heard that there was a Lutheran church in town up on close to Riverdale, and now. And
But you didn't join that church. You joined.
No, we joined. My husband was brought up as a Lutheran, being from Norway. His parents from Norway, and they came up shortly before they were married. His grandfather was a seaman, and as a lot of the men were in Norway, from Norway.
But you got involved with the First Congregational Church, then?
Yes, and we joined that in '52, and we've been a member. And my husband was active in it, and then when he became mayor and could not be active in church, because the mayors have to earn a living of those small towns, and these small towns in New Jersey, and they usually have a business of their own, or they're professionals of some sort. And my husband worked in Manhattan for Air Reduction Company, and they make gases for the commercial and medical research work.
What year was Carl mayor? Do you know what years Carl was mayor?
From 65 through 71, and he decided to step down. He had been a councilman for
Prior
10
to
years
that, yes.
before that, and the builder of the first library in town. And he was chairman of the building committee for that.
I understand he was very influential in getting the library built.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much
Yes.
an advocate for building the library.
Mm-hmm.
And were you involved in that as well with the library board?
Well, the Women's Club of River Edge
Okay.
in 1931 had established the first library in River Edge.
And that was
And
where?
it was at Roosevelt School, and the firehouse had been in that printing company, and they had had it before the printing company as their office. And they started with 500 donated books.
Okay.
And thousands of volumes they have in now. But we ran it at the club's expense. And it wasn't until the borough of River Edge had a room in the borough hall.
Borough Hall.
And
That was later, though.
Yeah, that was in the early and mid-50s. I think it was there when we moved in 51. That was true. That was where the library was, and it was still run by. I can't think of her
That's
name
okay.
right now.
That's all right.
It was the mother of Homer. I can't think.
It's okay. Well, what was now getting back to your husband Carl was the mayor, what was your role as the mayor's wife during one time when he was, what were the different things you got involved in as the mayor's wife?
I gave teas for all of the organizations, volunteer organizations.
Okay. So you thanked them by having them over for tea? Okay.
And I had to have set up the coffee and tea and coffee cake for the sine die meeting that they had in Borough Hall to turn the mayor and council over to the new members.
Oh, the transition. So you were in charge of the reception
Yes.
for the transition from
Yes.
one to the other.
And I had to hold, that was on New Year's Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Still is.
Yeah, still is. And I had an open house and served all sorts of salads and meat. Had them set up in the dining room.
Well, now you're talking about food. Maybe you want to mention that you have it here today, and we're going to try it after the interview. Is your prize brownies that won an award? Now, tell us how that happened.
We have an achievement day, a district achievement day, and all of the first place awards go to convention.
You're talking about the women's club.
Yes,
Okay.
the Women's Club
Right.
of River Edge.
And yours was
Inc.
entered. Yours was entered.
Yes.
Your brownies.
And they took the first place, and they call it Golden Place nowadays. In the old days, when we had more members, and that's a whole nother story about the women. It's a different era now. The women have to go to business.
The roles have changed
Yes.
for women.
Yes, they have drastically. We can't get any new members, younger members, in the and all the clubs are having the same problem.
And also
the
the volunteer
women's
organizations as well,
yes.
because women are, working full time. Their roles have changed.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. And as they say, after the interview, we're going to partake in your brownies.
No, yes, and I took first place in the state.
The state as well. Okay, so wasn't just in River Edge. The state. Okay.
Of the district.
Oh wow.
Then Palisades District. They renamed them by to get out of political inference, and it had been the 9th District, and that was a political name. So one of the state presidents, not too long ago, in the early 20,000s, changed it to Palisades District and the Mawa District, and so forth.
Now, Barbara, when you were involved with the Women's Club, what was some of the things that the Women's Club did originally when you got involved and you moved to town? What did they do?
They, besides the library, they established the recreation department.
Really? Okay.
And got the borough to go for sanitation, disposal, pickup, garbage.
The Women's
pickup.
Club was the impetus in getting garbage picked
Yeah.
up? Okay. I did not know that.
In the early years, and 42, I think that was.
Oh, okay.
And, or 41 or 2. And they started, they had the first Christmas tree and the first caroling that went around
That
to
they have
sick people.
every year now.
Yeah. And they, nowadays, they still support the library. And one of my projects as CIP, Community Improvement Chairman, was to raise funds for contributing something to River Edge. And I chose to use my money, and it was over $700. And that was for the system. It's a Japanese system, and I can't remember the name of it. And that's what the library wanted. And he said, or she said, if you, that was when Galgucci was librarian, head librarian. And she said they wanted most of all this Oriental Japanese invention that for hanging artwork on the walls, and that cost almost $800. And for
what
the
year about was that? You think it was?
That was when Kay Short was president. I've been president and department chairman of many departments and committee chairman.
Oh, okay.
That's
That's all right if you can't.
Yeah.
But Barbara, you also were telling me when we had talked a little bit before that the Scouts gave you you an award.
Yes.
Maybe you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Andrew Poe was a member of my church, and I asked the director of religion and church school in my church to recommend a person I had I had seen that without Sandy and my husband, that there were many jobs out in the yard that I could not do by myself in the spring and summer. So I asked her to recommend some boy and
The Scouts to do tasks for seniors.
yes,
Okay.
and to help me out.
Right.
And when it came time for Andrew to decide on a project for his Eagle Scout award, he had observed, and he was a big help. I couldn't have done it without him, and I didn't. I gave up the vegetable garden when he left for college, even though he had recommended 2 new boys in the involved in the Boy Scouts, and he was so helpful, and I showed him the bird houses that my son Sandy had made, and he looked at the construction of them and decided he would like for a piece of property in River Edge be set aside so that no building could go on it, and it would be a nature walk. And then, much to my and I supplied a bird sanctuary. That was one of our projects in the Women's Club. And while Carl was mayor, we put all these ridiculous standards. The cardinal was our town bird. The town was designated as a wild bird sanctuary. The dogwood tree was our flowering tree, and so forth.
Okay, good. And you said that they named, I believe you said, a trail after you.
Yes, and it was a surprise. One Saturday, his mother came with his daughter and son, and Andrew, of course. And I had given them the sign, which I raised by selling for $5. A friend got me a bunch of them made on the computer.
That's nice.
And I sold them for $5 each. We took part in the town in October. They have the River Edge Day, I think it's called.
Sure.
And it's called. And I sold them there and sold them to the members at each meeting and board meeting, and to my neighbors, and raised enough to have another sign made, a larger sign, and it was too long. Oh, I have to take...
Would you like to take a break, Barbara, or do you want to continue? You would? Okay, she wants to take a break. Okay, and we're talking again with Barbara Christiansen at 227 Greenway Terrace, and we're going to resume the interview, and we're going to ask you first, tell us what River Edge was like when you moved to town. Also, tell us about the schools. What schools were here when you came?
Riverdale wasn't there. It was being built. And by the time my children were old enough to go to Riverdale, it was accomplished.
Right. Where did your children go to school, for elementary school here?
Well, there was, lived down the south end of town.
So
in
you lived
one
at that end
those
of Oak.
little boxes.
Okay. Did they go to Roosevelt School?
No, after we lived up here, they went to Roosevelt.
And before
But,
that?
They went to the Holly M. Davis
Oh, okay.
School down at the southern end of town, and what now is split level houses.
Which is yes, it's a little small
Yeah.
housing development. Yes.
Yes.
And originally there was a school there. Yes.
Mhm.
And it was just actually from that end of town.
It was only a kindergarten through second or third grade, and then they would
went
go
to Cherry
Hill.
Yes.
And that was there when my first two children, and by the time Barbara was 4 when we moved up here, and we lived down there for 9 years,
Right.
and here for 1960.
This is when you moved into this house in
Yeah.
1960.
For this room.
And then what did you or your children, what did you do for like recreation in the summer? What did you do in the summertime?
They did all sorts of things in the summer, and my boys had the police after them.
Okay.
When we lived in the southern end of town,
On Oak Avenue.
and
What did they do that involved the police?
they played in the wood area, woods.
Which is now Memorial Park in that area?
No, in the south end of town.
Okay.
And that's north.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And they played in the woods and brought home all sorts of snakes and turtles, and the box turtles about that big, and raccoons. And
They actually brought home raccoons? Okay.
yeah. And my older boy, who is 67 now, I think, or 68, they started building, and my boys, and I call Charles the ringleader.
So was the swim club available then?
Oh, the swim club. When was that? That was when Carl was mayor.
Mayor, so in the 70s.
Yes, in the early, late 60s
Right,
or
early
70s, and we belonged to it. Even though I was afraid of water.
Really? Okay.
And couldn't swim. I was the only Marine that couldn't swim.
Oh my goodness!
Darn Marine Corps. And they gave up on me. They had a thing coming from the ceiling to a chest, a thing like you had for walking the children.
Harness. Okay.
A harness on me.
And I guess a life preserver if you went in the water.
And fairly good looking. I would never have made it.
Oh, okay.
The Marine Corps would have ousted me.
Oh, okay.
But
So what about, was July 4th ceremony different than it is today? I mean, what did the kids
no.
do? Did they still have the parade as like
yes,
they do today?
they still had the parade, and they would have lemonade for everybody, and the American Legion would have the Legion open for stronger drinks, beer.
Okay.
Beer mainly, for the adults.
Right.
but lemonade was served, and you didn't have until the Democrats got in, and you didn't have the festivities, all the businesses, what do you call, vendors.
Vendors.
Uh,
That's
and,
new.
And the different organizations had their tables.
Oh, at the park.
Yeah,
That was a newer thing
park.
at the Memorial Park.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't until my husband resigned from running from mayor, and the first Democratic mayor in town.
And who was that, Barbara?
John Curran.
John Curran. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he enhanced the July 4th type of parade.
Yes,
okay.
And it grew.
and it grew.
And but I want to say a little bit more about the dedication of the Marine Corps. That building, WIMSA. And,
in Washington, D.C., you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at the luncheon, which was just for the women in the Marine Corps, and the master of ceremonies, and they were playing all military tunes when we came in, the Marine Corps band.
The Marine Corps band. Right?
Yes. And the master of ceremonies, who was a general, a woman general, and the highest ranking was colonel, and the commandant of the women's reservists during the World War II was a colonel. And
that was the highest rank.
The highest rank there was. And I don't know of any majors in the Marine Corps at that time. And I was impressed because, and I was feeling like nothing for what we had done in comparison to the women that are in the Marine Corps nowadays.
Today, sure.
They do everything. They even train with combat weapons.
Right. Were there other women in River Edge that were also in World War II as well?
Yes.
I believe there was one or two other women.
Rusty Rice went with me. And in fact, I had just broken my arm in an accident, and I had my arm in a sling. And during the ceremonies, when they had the grandstands outside, and Hillary, it was when the Clinton was.
During the Clinton presidency.
And she was there. And a woman that had
there was another woman, right? There was Rusty, was you. I think there was a third woman that was from town.
That was in the early 90s.
Right.
They honored us.
Right, that's what I thought, yeah.
And there were three of us. And Mildred Catchings.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
She was the third.
Yes, she was the third.
Well, also...
She's passed away since.
Also,
and,
getting back to River Edge a little bit, also, what type of... did everybody have a car when you moved to River Edge, or did people walk to get to different things? Was there a bus route in town?
No, there wasn't a bus service.
There wasn't. Was there a bus going along
Project of the Women's Club.
Oh, okay.
Vicki Horner.
Oh, I knew Vicki Horner very well.
Yes, she was represented the Women's Club, and she was chairman of that committee.
And they started a bus service?
Yeah.
The bus that runs...
For senior citizens.
Oh, for senior citizens bus service, yes. That's today, right? They
yeah.
still have that.
Yes.
Right, for seniors. Explain that maybe a little bit. How does that work? People in town sign up for it? Or?
You call and sign up for it, and they'll take you shopping, grocery shopping, and they have certain days that they will take them to the malls.
Right.
And for appointments, doctors and dental appointments, and that sort of thing. But they don't take you for anything else but just senior citizens.
Right. Just for doctor's appointments and food shopping.
Yes.
Those are the two things. But that's a very good service that the town provides. So that's
and
excellent.
They'll sign up if you have a special occasion and where they think there'll be a lot of senior citizens involved. They'll have a special ride for those. For example, 4th of July, to take them to the park.
Right. Well, now that you brought us right into 4th of July, let's talk about the fact that this past 4th of July, 2016, you were made Grand Marshal of the Parade for all the accomplishments that you've had over the years. You want to talk a little bit about your experience as Grand Marshal?
That was grand, except that the regular man that dispenses the honor of the banner and the car banner was not there, and he had appointed a substitute, and the substitute fell through. And I didn't have any recognition for the car, and none of and Bobby Conway thought for some reason I had taken it off. She didn't realize that I never had received it. And that car, because she was up at the grandstands and waited and had seen the parade all the way from the beginning to the end.
What were some of the things that they cited you for in your accomplishments as being the Grand Marshal?
Well, it
some
was
different
the
things
women's club.
The women's club.
The women's club that started it, the bowl roll.
Oh, that they nominated you.
Yes.
Okay.
And they had nominated me last year.
Oh, the year before.
The year before. And I hadn't made it.
Someone else, okay.
Yeah.
That happens.
And I didn't know that I recommended. And they didn't tell me this year until they had received notification that I had won it this year.
Oh, okay. So they didn't want you to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So that they wanted to let you know when they were sure that you were
yes.
in. Okay. No problem.
And my daughter rode in the antique convertible.
With you. Okay.
And the wife drove it. But the husband was right behind her in a car in case she had any trouble with it.
With the antique car.
Yes. And she kept hollering, there's a Marine Corps woman serving in the service in World War II. And my daughter kept yelling, and she's Grand Marshal. Grand Marshal is sitting in the back seat.
Okay. So, all right. So, I don't want to, tax you too much, but just, last type of thing. Is there anything that you remember how the town has changed From when you moved to town and what it's like now, is there any memories that you have of the change in River Edge? Let's try and just end with that.
There are more traffic lights, and there are more traffic going through River Edge, and I remember my husband worrying about the traffic on Howland Avenue because residents had been killed on Howland.
Really?
That lived
just walking
in
across the street killed?
Yes.
Okay.
And he wanted to slow down the traffic on that street because they had been going fast on Forest, and when they turned, they tended to whiz through town to wherever.
When you first moved to town, were there still any farms up in River Edge?
Oh yes, there was Comps's farm,
Okay.
and they had
Chickens?
they would have chickens and turkeys.
And ducks, actually.
Yes, and ducks for the pond. And I had an adorable picture of my granddaughter, the youngest one, feeding the ducks. And she, every now and then, would take a bite of the bread herself. And
I wanted to ask you about, I know you probably were involved in it also, is Carl, your husband Carl as mayor, was very involved in starting the Arts Commission.
oh
Now,
yes, he started it.
And what did you guys do as far as that? You had local artists make things for the town? Or?
Yeah. Oh, well, we held in the summer in Memorial Park, we held an outside school town exhibit.
Like a town gallery outside of the artwork.
And in the winter, we have it at Riverdale. In the gymnasium.
Oh, that's nice. And that was to support local artists?
Yes.
Oh, yes. And I know that your son was...
sell their wares.
I know that your husband was very... Well, what made him get so interested in art, do you think?
Well...
Because I know he started something that, other mayors really were not particularly involved in.
I was an influence partly.
Oh, you influenced that. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I'm a would-be artist.
Oh, are you? Okay.
That's one of my works over there on the wall.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
just hold on for a second. Let's just see what Elizabeth, is that that bark? Is that it?
That's one.
Wow, that's great, Barbara.
That's Chinese art painting. It's done on rice paper, and we had a Professor Lee that was unfortunately, he went to Florida, he and his wife, to teach Florida people in the winter how
So it's Chinese brush painting?
Yes.
Okay, wow.
And,
that's actually very difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is because you have to follow what he has exhibited on the brush.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't draw the image first, and you paint immediately on the...
yeah, no, it's a whole technique, the Chinese brush painting.
Yes.
All right,
But
listen.
before that, I took major art in high school.
Oh, did you? Okay.
For 4 years.
Wonderful.
And some other subjects.
All right, well, listen, Barbara, we don't want to tax you too much, but we certainly appreciate you being gracious to opening up your home and letting the River Edge Historic Commission do it. And also I want to thank Aiden McGinty, who also is a Riverdale student and a River Edge resident, for
Yes.
taping this. And we can't thank you enough for you, as they say, being gracious enough to allow us to come into your home. And we're just thrilled with all the reminiscences that you have about the town.